everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Stash Report from the Stash Project. Today is August 6th, 2018, and hey, look at us, we're on time for a change. This video, by the way, not counting the monthly videos that we do, and other things that pop up on the channel, like bench reports and things like that, will override last year's total. This video that we're watching right now will be the 28th Stash Report of 2018. And that is more Stash Reports than I filmed in all of 2017. So, hurrah! I wanted to make the channel, a little more active this year, because I know last year was just a craziness with work and whatnot, and just it ended up being like, 2-3 weeks of it would get run together at once. But we have managed to, at least at some form or fashion, keep things sort of kind of moving. We're, I think, a couple weeks behind where we should be in terms of total weeks for the year, but we'll get 40 some odd, assuming we stay on some sort of schedule and track this year. So almost 52. Yeah, we're allowed to take a couple weeks of vacation, right? So we have some new kit announcements, a couple of releases for the week, a couple of reissues, a couple of brand new tools. So an announcement for a new tool as well, and then of course kit announcements. So before we get into all of that, however, we want to touch on very quickly a slight glacial move in the situation involving the Revell predicament of the U.S. tooling. So we posted on a Facebook group a photo of a bunch of tools lined up on a pallet rack and said that this is what it looks like when your company becomes the U.S. molder for the Revell molds that were sold off. And of course, everybody, the amount of tizzy this has thrown people into in the last 48 hours is hysterical, first of all, because of course everybody thinks this means something that it doesn't. But beyond that, it was just, I don't know, I think I cryptically worded it on purpose, but everybody assumes that now, Blitz sold all the U.S. tooling to this place in Illinois, and hurrah, we'll all be, no. So the company in question is in West Chicago, and they are the same facility that has been, at least for the last, 2 years or so, been running Revell's tooling that was still located in the United States. Jeep Honcho, Ram Charger, some of the old show rods and things like that. This is not a new development. If you got any of the kits that were made in the United States, like the Ram Charger or the Jeep Honcho or anything else like that, I'm looking around to see if I still have one that's sealed, because the printing was on the ceiling, on the cellophane in some cases. They all said made in U.S., West Chicago, Illinois. So this facility has been dealing with Revell's molds for a while. The picture of the tooling that was on this pallet racking is the exact same tooling that was in the old Parks and Rec. I know it was a TV show, but it was also a insert to the Chicago Tribune that did an article about Revell, I want to say about 4 years ago now. And in that article, they were showing off some of this tooling that was sitting around on the floor. At least this is on racks, and showing what a piece of tooling looks like, and just talking about Revell and its development through the years and things like that. It was a very nice article at the time. Didn't foreshadow any of the impending doom that was coming, of course. And it's that same tooling that was in that picture, because the hang tags are still on it, and the tooling is marked with stencils, and it is legitimately the same tooling that was at Revell's Elk Grove headquarters. A lot of people seem to think that because this tooling has turned up at this facility in West Chicago, that all of the tooling is going to get moved out of China, and we're just going to get a United States Revell again, and happy days, dance in the streets. And I'm sorry, you have your collective heads up your backsides if you think there's any chance of that happening whatsoever. What is more than likely happen is twofold. One, the tooling that this stuff is old. like the Ram Charger, probably the El Camino. What else was in that? The Broncos. All those things were in the Gone Fishing sets. The Honcho. All of these show rods. All of these things that were not fiscally worth sending to China back when Revell did that and moved all the the majority of their molds to China. This is all the stuff that was laying around that may not ever get run again. Turns out that it got a little renaissance there because, people my age are, like, oh, well, hey, the 80s, that's cool, because look at all a bunch of stuff around 2 last year, the Pacer, the Pinto Wagon, the 280ZX, Revell reissuing the RX-7, all that sort of 1980, late 70s, early 80s tooling that got run off last year. Sort of, popular right now. But at the time, in 2000s, it was like, we're never going to run this stuff again. We packaged it with a boat. It's sunk, literally, in the sales department, and we're never going to run it again, so we're not going to send it over there. So it's that stuff. The possibility exists that that tooling is, because most of it is older than the 1980s, would not operate on a injection machine that Blitz, aka Revell, has access to in Poland. They may have access to some great Cold War era Russian injection molding machines, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the U.S. tooling would fit into those. My cat just played with something. Now, the script of the Force like poured a glass of water out. I'm like, what is behind me? Oh my god. So there's that. The second is, of course, that Revell Habaco had a contract with this facility in West Chicago. And, well, what did they do? They assumed all of that licensing and contracts and stuff like that. That contract is one of the ones that was never rejected, by the way. So it's just very simple. Blitz decided, well, hey, these people already have parts of the tooling. They already know what they're doing with it. Apparently, they were able to make an agreement to warehouse the tooling at this facility. So, ta-da! Problem solved, at least in the short term, because now we don't have to truck all of this really, really heavy stuff halfway across the country to an ocean, and put it on a boat, and send it to Europe, and hope, like the dickens, that, we can find something to run the machining on. Obviously, this place has, injection molding machines that are either capable of running old tooling or they've been able to modify the Revell tooling to work with their current injection molding machines. So, hey, I mean, there's some progress, right? At least if it mattered to you seriously one way or the other where that tooling wound up, it's not going to leave, at least not in the short term. However, again, don't expect that this means that there's going to be a Revell U.S. Operations in the way that there was in the past. Don't think that means that this place in West Chicago bought all of the Revell tooling. I mean, yeah, it seems like it'd be really cheap, but I don't think that's what happened. And even if they did, they'd still have the majority of the tooling in China. And also, I expect the China bashing, by the way, to get hot and heavy here, because it's already started, where people were like, well, that's what happens when you lay down with dogs, you get the fleas, and whether you like it or not, the fact of the matter is some of the most talented tooling people in the world are in China now. They've been doing injection molding, pretty much from scratch, right? They didn't really have an industry for that at one point in time, for like 20, 30 years now. And it is not something that the United States has necessarily kept up on. You saw if you've been involved in this hobby for the last 20, 30 years, you realize that, AMT moved the production to Mexico, and then it went to China. Monogram Revell went to China. Mobius' stuff tooled in China. Actually, if you start going into, looking at globally, a bunch of the armor and military companies are based in Hong Kong. And beyond that, the Japanese companies that we all love so much, Hasegawa, Ebro, Aoshima, Fujimi, etc., have their stuff tooled in China. At this point, I believe only Fine Molds has the capability of even doing test runs of their own tooling. They cut their own tooling, but they source the production of the tooling to injection molding in China. Tamiya uses places in the Philippines. Not even the ultimate, places that you like to sit around and be like, oh yeah, Tommy, it fits together, it falls. Yeah, well, they're using China too. So it's, or well, the Philippines and China in some circumstances, depending on what the tooling is. It's you know, everybody outsources, so that's what happens. We've seen what happens when something is designed and done entirely in the United States. Not, of course, not the injection molding facility's fault that the tooling was designed in a crappy manner, but hey, how about them NASCAR kits? Yeah, those look great, don't they? I don't know. It's kind of sad because it makes me not want to be around people in the hobby when the xenophobia starts coming on out of the woodwork, and you see it whenever this sort of stuff happens, because of course everybody starts blaming communists and this, that, and the other thing, and it's like PTSD, and not to make light of people who actually really have PTSD by any stretch of the measure, but it's PTSD flashbacks to the Revell, the army came in and took Revell's tooling and they smashed the 30 Ford molds, and oh god. So there's your glacial update on Revell. The U.S. tooling has resurfaced, still in Chicago, and at a facility that was already connected to Revell prior to the sale. So no actual real shocking revelation there. Just the company in Germany keeping the tooling where it was, which makes perfect sense if you didn't want to ship it to Germany in the first place. They may have intended all along to ship it overseas, but again, did they have someplace they could easily access that would allow them to run the tooling in an efficient manner? And the answer to that may have been no, because, you know, without getting into a whole bunch of this, that, and the other thing, I mean, hell, you can't plug a U.S. plug into a European socket, which of course doesn't mean that tooling machines are wildly different either, but it's one thing to take a brand new tooling machine and then take a 60-year-old piece of tooling steel and try to ram it into that new tooling machine and have it run. Because what Revell of Germany had done prior to it becoming the Revell was they were going to start taking their tooling and production out of China and put it into Poland. And so the chances of this old tooling fitting into the new thing, I mean, people, you don't go out and you spend a bunch of money on this stuff if you don't know, or at least in the long term know what you're doing with it, in the sense of them just sending it to Germany and being like, oh, snap, now what do we do with it? We don't have anything to run it on. I'm sure somebody, came over and did their due diligence with it, and obviously when they were inspecting all the various licenses and contracts that they had with Revell that they had purchased by purchasing the assets of Revell, they, oh, hey, you know what, this is probably the best place for this stuff, and, if nothing else, at least gives you sort of a glimpse, a glimmer of hope that some of the old Revell stuff that was never sent over, that could certainly be run in a very time-efficient manner if somebody in control of it can get decals printed, Revell instructions drawn, boxes made, because boxes are made in China, so even if you move the tooling, you're still going to get the boxes from China, because of course China is now the leader in 4-color printing. So, but it's see a lot of people flailing around blaming China for everything, and it's just not appalling, but it's just sad, because it's I get it, older generations, I get it, but at the same time, globalization is what it is, and if you want to sort of play the game, as it were, with this stuff, you just have to, deal with it. And it's, I guess, unfortunate, but at the same time, it's just the status quo right now. And until somebody can really show that they can break the status quo, it is the status quo. So, anyway, let's talk really quick about the one new tooling announcement. Kitten, not really in the mood for kitten right now, and it would be this. It is the next kit in the next series that Fujimi is running. This is going to be coming out, a little blurb in the corner there says 2018 with a bunch of Japanese writing that says winter of 2018. Now I assume that would mean around Christmas time, because obviously the winter of 2018 will start, 3 days before Christmas. So, the winter of 2019 may be a more likely scenario. But this, of course, is a Toyota FJ Cruiser. Now, I've already seen some people comment about, well, that's about 10 years too late for that. You have to understand that in the context of Fujimi, remember, Fujimi is a Japanese first model company, right? They focus on their market and then Asia beyond it. Not, oh, hey, let's make the Americans happy. So, more than likely, this will be a right-hand drive only version. And the JDM version, I should say, right-hand drive JDM version of the FJ Cruiser sold in Japan until last year. A lot of people don't realize that because in like 2012 or 13, they pulled the production out of the United States, or not the production, but the sales out of the United States. They continue to sell that car in Japan until last year. So this will be a 2017 JDM spec FJ Cruiser. Now, what else it could be over time remains to be seen. Obviously, the next car stuff has primarily been like, oh, look, fancy color this, fancy color that. Oh, hey, look, there's another fancy color we can mold it in because it's supposed to be a snap-tight, no paint, no glue type of deal. The only thing that really has had multiple variations has been the Alfred and the Velfire van. I don't know, other than making like one of the off-road TRD versions of the FJ Cruiser, what more you can really do with this other than trim levels and, we're going to mold this one in white and that one in orange and this one in blue and things like that. But it's cool. I'm up for it. I know, again, a lot of people would like to have the North American spec version and are, outraged, if you will, about the fact that it's, too late and they don't make the car here anymore. But again, it was made up until last year. It's still a fresh car, if you will, in Japan. So there is that new tool from Fujimi. It was Wonderfest last week in Japan, which is pretty much the only show that Fujimi attends. So they announced it at that show along with a bunch of like 172nd military stuff and things like that. Because 172nd is a very popular military scale in Japan, obviously due to space limitations that most Japanese people are facing, living in smaller accommodations than we here in the United States and North America would traditionally consider be appropriate, if you will. A lot of apartment living going on, and if you live in an apartment, and I think we've all probably been there at one point or another, you know that you don't have nearly as much space as you do in a single family, unattached dwelling. So, the small scale military stuff is very popular over there. And again, that's their primary market. In the announcement side of things here, we have the October announcements from Hasegawa. And they are going to be just a straight rerun of the Toyota Celica GT4 RC, which is their street version of the Celica Rally Kit, the GT4 Rally Kit. They're going to reissue the Jordan 192 F1 car. That is the 124th scale 1992 Jordan F1 car. They're going to run the Watanabe sponsored, or I should say Watanabe Dunlop sponsored Reynard 89D Formula 3000 car. That will be representing the 1989 Formula 3000 series car. A reissue of the 1998 Toyota Celica, or Corolla rather, Safari Rally WRC car. So this is the off-road, gravel version of the Monte Carlo kit that they had done earlier this year, or towards the end of last year. And, big grills, so big push bar or brush guard on the front and things like that. Bigger, more ground clearance, off-road suspension, things like that. I think the car itself finished 8th or completely out of the race because you could build the Monte Carlo rally car as either of the two team cars. I expect this will be the same. The one team car finished 8th, the other one did not finish at all. And then the two kits that I'm very, very excited to have, because this represents the end of the Hasegawa Japanese Touring Car Championship reissues, is the 1992 Kawashu Toyota Corolla E101 11. And that is the last of those to be reissued. At this point, they have now reissued all four of them with this kit coming out. And they're also going to reissue the 1994 season STP Kaisei Ferio Civic. And that is the one that looks very much like a sort of a NASCAR kit, because it has very much the 1990s STP petty blue, fluorescent red livery scheme that, of course, Petty Enterprises was running in NASCAR at the same time. So it's very, it's not completely and totally identical, but it does certainly, lend itself to the other, in the sense of, if you look at one, you're like, yeah, I see what they were doing there. It's like very global, you know, brand and coloring that was going on there. The STP car is traditionally molded in a light blue, and then all the decals are in fluorescent red. The Kawashu Corolla is a dark blue car with very, very, very simple graphics. Makes the Calsonic car look like it's over decaled, and all those decals are in white. That was the problem pretty much with the Kawashu Civic. You could usually find the Kawashu Civics for a reasonable price because it was sort of a very odd Corolla, or I kept saying Civic there, because the Kawashu Corolla, because the Corolla, you know, that particular car didn't do particularly, you know, it was not a, you know, outstanding car as far as the competition went. The other three cars that the Corolla, the Advent, the Object T, and the other one that slips my mind right now, are, you know, much better well known. Some of them had race success, and this one was not exactly as successful. But those decals from 1992 tend to be very, 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 very yellow at this point in time in their life. So having these be rerun fresh is fantastic. Very, very, very excited personally to get those kits to come back out, because that is certainly something that I've been waiting on for a while. So that'll take us over to kit releases. We have 2 releases here already in August from domestic manufacturers. Now you may guess, since there's only one round 2 kit, that these are the Mobius kits, and you, sir or madam, would be correct. So first up, you have the release of the, I've said Artie, I think 2 or 3 times now, but it is Arnie Beswick. My apologies to the Beswick family. And that's going to be the Comet, the 1965 Mercury Cyclone AFX drag car. We just talked about this, 2 weeks ago when it was announced that it would officially come out for August. We just talked about it in the August compilation video, so I don't want to spend a whole heck of a lot of time discussing it now. Big bullet points would be 427 SOHC engine, so you have the camera 427 in there, updated drag parts for the chassis, for the interior, roll hoop, tack, new wheels. I don't necessarily know if the tires are new per se, but they're obviously drag appropriate, you know, tires, mag wheels. You know, you got the header. The whole engine is new, frankly. The hood's new. So this is going to be a Model King produced Mobius kit. So limited run, not, oh my God, limited, but, you know, it's going to be like a 5,000 piece run. So those are out there for people who want them. I know the vintage drag guys will be super excited to have that come out. Also out of Mobius this week is the 1974 Ford F100 Custom Cab 4x4. The kit, again, I think a lot of the truck builders have been waiting on patiently. Perhaps, again, this is a little better late than never, but barely. And again, we have to emphasize that this is an F100 kit. I don't care what the box art shows. The fact that it is an F250 or an F200 or whatever the 1-ton truck would have been considered that at that time. So it is a very, very street subdued 4x4. It is not this big jacked up locker hub, you know, industrial construction truck that they're showing on the box art. A lot of people who don't know are going to be probably very disappointed when they get the contents, but it is what it is. It is a 4-wheel drive, so legit 4-wheel drive suspension and drivetrain and all that sort of thing, but it's not the cool thing that's on the box art, because frankly, I think that would have been even cooler than just the regular the F100, but they don't pay me to be in charge of that sort of thing. Let's see, what else? We have the one new toolkit coming out of Hasegawa as we go overseas here. That would be the 1971 Mitsubishi Colt Galant GTO MR. This would be the sportiest version of this car that was available at the time. We've talked about before, this car is designed kind of, sort of, like an American muscle car. The designers from Mitsubishi went to design school in California, and they brought back things like Coke bottle body, the fastback roof. That's, you know, if you sort of kind of block the front of the car off and squint at the back end, it does very Mustang-y. You know, so there's parts in this kit we don't use, so of course that means there's more coming. But that's a no-brainer in that terms. You knew that this wasn't going to be a one-and-done type of deal. The side stripes, the hockey stripes, do come in 2 different colors. There's at least two. There's a red one and a black one. Black one obviously goes on a lighter car. Red ones go on a black ones go on this orange car, and several other different colors. The red one specifically goes on a white car and probably maybe yellow. I don't know. You have to take a look at what the actual physical color combinations were in 1971 for this car if you care enough. But like I said, it gives you the option of not just painting it orange like the box art. There are two different color hockey stripes. We've been through that kit a couple of different times on a couple of different videos, so we won't spend all day on it. The other new toolkit that has come out this week is this. This is the B-Max Porsche 935 Crema 2. As we told you, this is a 2-in-1 decal. Two of the Valiant cars, the Peter Gregg white one and the more probably well-known mint green version. These both represent 1977 DRMs, which is at the time, German racing division. You can choose to not put the big turbine vents on the wheels, otherwise they're BBS mesh underneath. There are included in this, again, a number of parts that are not used because, of course, this will be, if nothing else, at least a K3 in the future. But they do include the all of the mirrors and the mirror faces to put the mirrors on the doors. And there are a couple of different K2s that ran the mirrors on the doors rather than out on the sort of the fender pods that are on the kit box art shows. So that is an option, like I said, to put the mirrors on the doors and to not run the turbine vents, and also it's a curbside kit, but they did include a separate engine front that would have your belts and pulley systems on it, and the turbo pieces and the exhaust, obviously, so that the back end of the car, which is very much exhausty and showing the back part of the engine, is a little more in detail than just it being engraved in the chassis. The transaxle and the transmission itself are also separate pieces, so pretty much just the block is molded to the chassis, and I think that's a pretty decent compromise. I know a lot of people would have liked to have had this have a full engine in it, but that would also raise the price probably about $10, and it's already a $33 model kit as it is, so there's going to be at least 5, perhaps 6 liveries, aftermarket liveries for this kit. 2 of them will be coming out of Frankie at SK Decals for 2 of the Macau cars from the 82 and 83. And then there are several of the European racing series cars that will be available from Rege wants to do a couple, I believe, and the other ones will be out of decal cost, I believe, or decal cost. So there's that, and then also, of course, it comes with sold separately, but designed for the detail upset, which gives you your fabric for the seatbelt system. I'm going to assume that's an input for the air jacks, because sometimes they come with antennas, but that looks like it's an input. And then you have the photo etch itself behind it, which, is pretty much what you would expect from a B-Max photo etch set at this point. Bunch of vents, bunch of grills for various inlets and outlets. Your winglets are on here, as well as your brake faces, fire bottle tie down, and of course the belt system, like I said, to make the belts. And it looks like there's the pieces to make the hood pins and the bonnet pins, because technically, obviously, the hood pins will be the trunk in this case. And yeah, it's kind of cool. We got this one. Looks like in production it is fretless. So this is the normal photo, because originally when we saw this sort of pop up, it had all the little attachment points on it, and traditionally speaking, B-Max does not have attachment points. This will be it's two-sided basically. There's a protective coating on the front, and then there's an adhesive coating on the back, and so you just peel, either cut out and then peel off, or for the bigger pieces you can just peel off the adhesive background, and that saves you from having to cut things off and having sharp edges and things like that. It's a very cool innovation, and several of these pieces, from looking at the instructions, really will improve the overall look of the kit in terms of the vents and things like that compared to the plastic pieces. So this one looks like it's of recent detail upsets that B-Max has run. This one looks like it's actually the most, I handy is a bad word for it, but it's the most useful. There we go. That's the word. The most useful one they've done for a while. I'm looking at this here. There's a couple other Hasegawa kits to talk about. These actually came out for August. The Mitsubishi Colt Galant was a July kit. So for August, we have 2 reissues out already. And they are the Benetton B190B 1991 livery. Pretty much a duplicate with the changes made to the B190 kit that has already come out. This is 124 scale. Again, the F1 kits. One thing about this kit that you will need, and I don't know that anybody makes them right now, so this is something you have to keep an eye out for in terms of aftermarket. In the probably Taboo or perhaps Shunko. Shunko's done a couple of other 124 scale sheets for the other F1 kits that have already been reissued. There's no camel livery on this kit. Unlike some of the other Hasegawa kits where like they either show the tobacco livery and don't care, or don't show the tobacco livery and have the decals in it anyway, I believe this one, just because of the age of the kit and the fact that they more or less are, recreating decals, not really drawing new ones, there are not camel livery for this. I looked at it, and I looked at the instructions, and I kind of just sort of give a glance over to see if there's anything in them that's any different from the last time. And I was like, something about this looks a little bare. Like there's a lot of blank spaces on this car that I don't think should be blank. And yeah, it would be the camel livery that's missing off the car. So be aware that if you get this, if you're starting to collect the 124 scale F1 and F3000 kits, be aware that this one is going to need a little bit of livery help to make it look quite complete. And then we have the reissue of this. This, of course, is the one we just talked about at the very end of the last video, the video for the August kits. And this is the Playshore Racing Mazda 767B. This will represent a 1992 Japanese sports car prototype series car. Would be the last year that JSPC ran. This kit is molded in yellow, and you will have to paint the fluorescent pink. What they give you decal-wise are all the black stripes that make the border up for the dividing line between the yellow and the hot pink. So, there is a little bit of painting here. So Hasegawa obviously made this kit because Hasegawa sponsored the car. It's kind of cool in the sense of just, what it is. And I'm not really big on my Group C cars, Le Mans. You guys know that. We've talked about it a thousand times. But this one's pretty cool. I appreciate the rerunning of this kit because it's just one of those really obscure cars. Didn't win, didn't do very well at all. But obviously, like I said, they sponsored the car. It's got the old vintage Hasegawa 1980s or 1990s livery on it, which they've reproduced on the box art, but that's not really their normal marking. I'm trying to see if I have a Hasegawa kit laying around real quick that I can grab, but I don't think I do. And so it's just a cool little piece. Painting it would be a colossal pain in the butt because there's a lot of taping off to do there, and you're really only given like maybe about 1/8 of an inch of wiggle room where you could sort of have a sloppy edge and have it be covered by that black decal. But for the Intrepid Group C builder, that kit is back out. Lastly, we'll go over to Aoshima. They got their last of the model car line stuff out. There's also these 3 sets of wheels, which I thought I had talked about, but in the last 3 weeks I've managed to completely ignore them. They've been on, the images have been on the computer and I have not talked about them. So they are the 18-inch Work Emotions CR Kawami wheels, the Volt Racing TE37 RT gravels, and the Workmeister S1 3 pieces. But keep in mind, we've talked about this, ever since they started doing these, or at least since I've been doing this, because the wheels are older than the show, obviously. These are not actually 3-piece wheels in real life. They're 1-piece in model land, but in real life, one car, there are 3-piece, but not what you get. What you get is a 1-piece wheel. So the model car reissues are the 1989 Toyota Crown Royal Saloon V8. This would be a Z, the UZS 131, or just we call it Z130. This is a factory stock reissue, but there are a bunch of the 1980s custom pieces. So you have a bunch of the ground effect stuff, the old big TV antenna. Anybody who's old enough, my age or older, will remember the great big boomerang-shaped TV antennas that used to be in existence back then. So we got one of those in there. A couple different interior options as far as custom pieces. The only little additions to this kit are the wheels have been run twice because they give you one set of tires. Traditionally speaking, in this kit, and I have one in police form, this was a big and little wheel set. The back wheels were wider width for some unknown reason. But in reality, they're the same diameter on a factory stock crown. It's the first time this crown has been offered with the factory stock wheels since the mid-1990s. It has been reissued a couple times since then with Photo Etch Vortex, but as far as being a bone factory stock on the box art, I mean, there's another set of wheels in here, and there, you know, are again a bunch of ground effects and aero options. This is the first time it's been available this way in a really long time. I had one on pre-order. I canceled it when it was pretty much the same stuff as the police car version I have. I'm thinking maybe selling the Wangan Midnight police car and buying one of these instead, just because I really have no attachment to what that Wangan Midnight police car is, and I know that it will probably go to somebody who actually collects that type of Japanese collectible, rather than me just wanting a factory stock late 80s crown. Then you have the reissue of this. This is the Toyota Truno GT Apex 1984 kit. This has the addition of the awesome 1980s gold wheels. This kit, by the way, does come with an engine insert. It is a factory stock engine insert, but it does come with an engine insert, which is, you know, was going to be hit and miss on these as to which ones would and which ones wouldn't. GT Apex kits have traditionally always had the engine insert in them anyway, and so the GT Apex adds like that bottom little front lip spoiler and the side skirting and things like that, but really it's not a big change. And then lastly is this, the reissue of the Corolla 11 AE85, which is a designation based on the engine, and this is the 1500 SR version. So this has some wheels that, again, haven't seen the light of day in quite a long time. They were tooled up in the late 1980s, actually. And then this is a bone stock Corolla 11. New decals to make the S1500 SR. This is a curbside. There is no engine in this one. But otherwise, it's, you know, the Corolla 11, just really, really, really stripped down. Somebody was talking to a friend of mine who was like, well, the only reason you buy those two Trunos is the bottom box stock to get the wheels, but the wheels are kind of goofy looking. I'm like, yeah, but again, you're building them for the wheels because the wheels haven't been in those kits in decades. So, guys, I think that wraps it up for this week. So that's where we're at with kits, that's where we're at with announcements, and that's where we're at with the Revell ongoing fiasco. So consider yourself duly informed. Probably be a slow week next week, as it always is, usually the first week of a month, because there's no, at this point, kit announcements are out. Kit releases will be slow for this next week, so should be a mercifully short show next week unless something more comes out of the Revell tooling moving situation. And, yeah. In the meantime, enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you guys.